Hello, BookTube. This is the, let me get the right name here, the Top 10 Nonfiction Books Tag. It's an original tag by Lukash over at Totally Pretentious. A fellow member of the Sag-Along group, those of us who are hosting Sag-Along next month, reading the Icelandic sagas just like we did last year. So if you get a chance, check out Sag-Along. I think you can do it with a hashtag and check BookTube and you'll be able to see who's made announcement videos. But one of them is Lukash. So he created this tag. It's a good one. I've been watching them. I'm a little late with mine. I've been a bit under the weather. But what I've seen, I've really enjoyed. A couple things. First, I saw a mention of the Oxford English Dictionary. I have a compact version. I used to have the big double set with the magnifying glass. I don't have it anymore. And I don't have the big multi-volume set, which I would love to have. And so that was a very interesting one. What I would add to that are atlases, and I won't include them in this, but in general, I collect a lot of atlases. Oxford, Rand McNally, National Geographic, old and new. You can learn a lot from both. And so I won't be including those. Another thing is I did notice a little bit, Lukash also suggested that we don't include primary religious texts, the Bible, Quran, any of that sort of thing. But I've seen people do theological or historical works surrounding those things, which I understand. The other thing was poetry. Now, one thing is when you go into your public library, especially in the United States, I'm not sure about other countries, a confusion can reign a little bit because you'll see that poetry's over in the 800s in the Dewey Decimal, or broke up in that sort of way in the 700s and that sort of thing, where literature from different countries are. So also your classical literature a lot of times will be in the Dewey number, and then you'll have a fiction section. The fiction section is done because those books aren't seen to have a long shelf life. It's not part of the Dewey Decimal System, F for fiction or FIC or however your library's doing it. They're actually stepping outside the cataloging system. So in a normal strict Dewey Decimal, that fiction would be mixed in over in the Dewey Decimal number. So that's not, they're not assuming that poetry, because it's in the Dewey Decimal, is fiction or nonfiction. They're assuming it's poetry. The same thing happens in a lot of modern public libraries in the United States, that's all I can speak for, with biography, or B or BIO, or biography will be on the volume, and as a part of the call letter. And that, again, those biographies have different parts in the Dewey Decimal where they would go. It's just for the public. They're making it in a convenient collection. It's just like reference and that sort of thing. So, that being said, that's why they're showing up separately. Most modern fiction is expected not to last long enough, shelf-wise, to actually end up ever being shelved on the Dewey Decimal place. So, with that weird little librarian thing out of the way, let me get to my choices. This was tough, and everybody's noted that. I could have picked 10 different books, but I did take quite a while because I just thought it was so much fun. I don't know how I did. I'll probably wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I forgot that one. So a few of them are representative. Some are based on that they were important to me in my own development, and I'm not claiming they're the best in the field. Others I think are. So let's get right to it. In no particular order. The first here is Lords of the Sea by John R. Hale, the epic story of the Athenian Navy and the birth of democracy. This, for those of you who like ancient history, is a wonderful book. It does focus on naval and boat building and the culture around the sea. Absolutely magnificent book, Viking. And this came out in 2009. So let me see here if there's a bit here I can read. Thanks to its navy, Athens played a leading role in the Greek struggle for freedom against the invading Persians. After the epic victory at Salamis in 480 BC, Athenian sea rule was tested in Egypt and the Black Sea, suffered a temporary eclipse in the Peloponnesian War, and finally fell to the Macedonians in 322 BC. Well, that was a challenge. So, like I say, I'm not used to speaking yet, since I just got my voice back, such as it is. So yeah, wonderful book. It should be easy to find if you like ancient history, maritime history, ancient Greeks, any of that stuff. So next up is a music book. It's a biography. Came out a few years ago. John Eliot Gardner, Bach, Music in the Castle of Heaven. Very meaty thing. Well written, beautifully researched. Let's see here. Alfred Knopf, 2014. John Eliot Gardner, many of you will recognize him as a conductor. I have a big, wonderful set. I don't know if you can see it from here. Yeah, right there. I never can do this right there. That's a set of Beethoven he did, of the symphonies. This volume I learned a tremendous amount from. It's well put together. Maps. Let's see if we get it without the glare there. I know there's a section of illustrations. I haven't picked this up in a while. Absolutely eye-opening in its detail, its scholarship, and for someone who's not a trained musician, myself, I could read this and really get a lot from it. So I strongly recommend it. Then a book by an art historian, but it's really a biography of a city. Maybe the best of its kind I've ever read myself. I haven't read them all, but for the ones I've read. And this is Barcelona by Robert Hughes. He wrote a volume, as you see down here, called The Fatal Shore, about Australia. Tons of art criticism of the best kind. Brilliant writer. He passed away a few years ago. This came out, this again, Alfred A. Knopf, a little bit of a theme here, 1992. And it just recounts from the earliest times Barcelona. Now, I've traveled a bit in Europe. I've even been to Spain, and I've never been to Barcelona. And I'll tell you what, this book, I've lent it to people who are on their way over, who I'm very jealous of, and I would love to go there just because of the stories in this. His ability to put words on page and just bring all this history to life is quite a talent. The next one is a history of philosophy. So I've done 3. So number 4 is a history of philosophy. This is not the best book. It may now not even be the best of its kind. It's a wonderful book. It's a book that I read and led to my enjoyment of philosophy by giving me a little bit of a grounding, a starting point anyway. And this one's a rebound copy, but you can still find this volume. This is Will Durant, The Story of Philosophy. Lovely little copy here, which I got for $1. So Garden City Publishing Incorporated, and it's out of Garden City, New York. Will Durant, so this is the, let me see, this is the New Revised Edition from 1933. A lot of you remember Will Durant did that giant set, The Story of Civilization, I have that out in the other room, was a fairly common set. One of the sets that you could choose when you joined the Book of the Month Club long ago, which is a sort of a project to read through that. I mean, I don't know if I've ever shown it on this channel, but I certainly could. So just to give you an idea what's in this, you have a section on Plato, you have Aristotle and Greek science. Up to Plato starts with the context of Plato, so you get some of the pre-Socratic stuff. You have Francis Bacon, Spinoza, Voltaire and the French Enlightenment, Immanuel Kant and German idealism, Schopenhauer, Herbert Spencer, Friedrich Nietzsche, contemporary European philosophers, and then contemporary American philosophers. So the contemporary Americans are George Santayana, William James, and John Dewey, who was from Vermont. Then you have contemporary European philosophers, Henry Bergson, Benedetto Croce, and Bertrand Russell, to give you an idea where he's ending this. Wonderful book, very, very easy to read, but you pick up a lot. So this would be one of my favorites. I'm going to have to take a quick drink again here. Sorry. The next one, it sort of fed a hunger I had after a trip to the Soviet Union. And I was there in 1991, and I was there and right when Gorbachev was put under arrest and all the excitement happened. So had a big impact on me. And when I came back, I started reading everything I could find on Russian history and culture, because I saw a lot when I was over there. I was over there for an archaeology field school and lithic use-ware analysis. So one of the books that really, really helped me get a feel for the culture and to start knowing where I wanted to read was St. Petersburg, A Cultural History by Solomon Volkov. He's written several others. There's been many other books on similar subjects, such as Natasha's Dance. There are just lots of them, but this is one I really enjoyed. This is translated by Antonio W. Bois, I believe you pronounce it, the Free Press, New York. And this is the first printing from 1995. And he really makes this city, which is where he was from, come alive. There's two sections, I think, here, maybe even three of photographs. It was Volkov who introduced me to Anna Akhmatova's poetry, which I really, oh, here she is right here, which I really, really, really love. So this book was just fantastic. Introduction to the culture, and like I say, I've read quite a few. So then, see if I can get through this. I'm just going to be having to take a swig here. The next one is an archaeology book. My undergraduate degree was in archaeology. And this book has a lot to do with why I chose archaeology. Other things did too, but this was the primary motivator. It led me to read a lot of books. And this is C.W. Sarum, God, Graves, and Scholars. Now, he did other volumes that I used to own. I wish I still did. This was translated from the German by E.B. Garside. It's a New York Alfred A. Knopf book, and it's from 1951. This is the 15th printing of 1954. It just tells you how well it sold. It's a Borzai book, and it's the story of archaeology. It's a heroic, romantic look at archaeology, which I'm all for. I mean, it's a very scientific discipline in some ways, but you have to have something to inspire you, right? And then the history of this particular science is just sparked the imagination, so I really loved it. I wonder if, well, they're not going to give a list in this book, I wouldn't think, but he did quite a few other volumes that were really good too. And on a similar vein, in an older book also, but this one about, it's archaeological in a way, but it's also about finding, it's really focused on script, manuscripts, books, writing, I mean on tablets, clay, anything. And this is Testaments of Time, The Search for Lost Manuscripts and Records by Leo Duo. Absolutely marvelous book. If you love the story of books, this is one to have. This is, again, an Alfred A. Knopf. It's amazing how many of these are. Excuse me. New York, 1966. So it talks about finding, well, let me see, it talks about the passionate book hunter Poggio Bracciolini. I'm not even saying that close. Different kinds of script. We talk about Tischendorf in the going through like Jerusalem or Mount Sinai, St. Catherine's. Talk about papyrus, and this one is Wallace Budge. A lot of you will see his reprints of his old books. Just full of stuff. The world's oldest books. He even has stuff on the Mayans, Marco Polo, caves of the Judean wilderness, more light on the New Testament. Again, Tischendorf, so the Codex Sinaiticus, which Sean D. Standfast, a great new channel, by the way. I'll put a link down below, was discussing in, he was talking about some catalogs he had from the John Rylands Library, and he mentioned Codex Sinaiticus. So, yeah, a channel you should really check out if you're into this sort of stuff, especially because he knows his stuff. So this one, this actually could probably do for a reread. It's Errolstein was an explorer that's in there. So what are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was impressive, right? 7 so far. Number 8, I picked a representative volume. Number 1, because someone on BookTube has the entire set of this gentleman's naval operations volumes. I'm not in the least bit jealous. I have quite a few of his other books, and this is Sailor Historian, the best of Samuel Eliot Morison. He's written a lot on, obviously, naval matters, but other stuff too. His books on exploration of the North and South of the Western Hemisphere, his biographies of John Paul Jones. He wrote a history of a place I used to hang around, the history of Mount Desert Island in Maine. And this is just a collection, so he's got, let's see what we have in here. Oh, I should tell you where it came from. This is Houghton Mifflin and Company, Boston, which is appropriate. He's a Boston person. So it's edited by Emily Morrison Beck, forward by Walter Muir Whitehill. So this came out in 1977. So, and she saw, and the forward is the preface is Emily Morrison Beck, and it's from Good Hope, Northeast Harbor, Maine, where she wrote it, which was right down the road from where I used to live. And let me see if they give a list of. It's a reflection on style by another. So we have Discovery of America, Voyages and Sea Battles, which will include some of those naval operations of World War II. Studies in American History, one's William Bradford. Young Man Washington, a piece on Benjamin Franklin. American Life, an example would be The Harvard Man of 1700, and The Rope Makers of Plymouth, which I have a copy of. History of the Craft, so Prescott, The American Thucydides, Francis Parkman, Sir Winston Churchill, and a history as a literary art. And then Reminiscences and Adventures, selection from One Boy's Boston, Reminiscences of Charles Eliot Norton, which I can guarantee you that Steve Donahue read, and then A Summer Cruise in the Aegean. So he was a sailor, not just on naval ships, but of pleasure craft. So one I can, this might be a good entry point to see what type of stuff he has done and give you a taste. Then the ninth one here, and this is Henry Thoreau, A Life of the Mind by Robert D. Richardson Jr. I have a paperback of this. I used to have his book on Emerson. I wonder if they list that here, which was absolutely fantastic. They don't. So I think it was Emerson in a similar subtitle. This, which I should still have and I don't. This one was University of California Press, and it's Robert D. Richardson. Absolutely magnificent. I love these. I can read Thoreau anytime. Just In the Maine Woods, Cape Cod, Walden, obviously. Just one of those people that's always fascinated me since I was a youngster. The journals are wonderful. So Robert D. Richardson Jr., Henry Thoreau, A Life of the Mind, and like I say, his volume on Emerson. The exact title will come to me the minute I'm done filming this, but I do not have it. And then the 10th one, and one of my favorites, is more of a popular culture history. It's very, very specialized. And one of the treasures of my library. And this is the 3-volume set, but I'm counting it as one, of the original series Star Trek by Mark Cushman. I'll just pull out season 1 here. These are expanded and revised. All of them are signed. My wife got me these. And if you want to know about the original series, there's no other place to go. I mean, and there's been a lot published on the original series. So they give you unbelievable amounts of information in these things. Everything from what programs they were up against, how they did, what day of the week, how the script was done, who did it, who revised it, filming things, every single episode in unbelievable detail and fascinating. So even if you're not a Star Trek buff, if you're a film or a television buff, you'll get background on actors and actresses, all sorts of background information that just, to me, when I sit down and watch an episode and I've had a chance to read up on it beforehand, and I've been watching these things since the 1960s, it makes it that much more enjoyable. So that really is a single volume that's broken up by season as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to bend the rules and have that count as one volume, one book, not one volume. So again, thank you to Lukash, everyone else. I've tried to keep up as best I could with the videos that everybody else has done for this, and I've enjoyed them very much. Some great stuff out there, and I like how much variety there is, and some great answers. So until next time, thank you, BookTube.